everyone. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Before we bring out our guests today, we wanted to we want to definitely give you some little advertisement of what's going on of upcoming classes and other events. So we have the Law Government History, Moroccan Post Law Government History class, and that's go to the Moroccan Post Media for for recorded classes. Moroccan Post Media YouTube page. Remember to click, subscribe, and like. Click, subscribe, like. Our channel. That's the Moroccan Post Media YouTube page. Right, we have the Moroccan Post Law Government History class. Next class will be presenting Shamalakai Bey, myself, Abdullah Bey. Topic: Moorish Treaty Protection and Consular Relations. Rita Kwawanto, Part 1. That's next Wednesday, this coming Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So 7 to 10 Eastern Standard Time via Zoom. The Moroccan Post Law and History class. Our second Wednesday classes continue until further notice. The second Wednesday class will continue until further notice.
Mm-hmm. Just keep in mind that this date right here is absolutely wrong, incorrect.
What date should be?
No, this it should be in December. This says November 9th. So November 9th is already passed.
Yes, December. All right.
So in December, so it's going to be the third class is going to be held on the fourth, I'm sorry, Wednesday in December.
Mm-hmm.
And then January and February, it's going to be the second and fourth Wednesdays.
Yes.
And then we'll see what it is after that.
All right. And then all right, to order my books, Moors and Masonry Part 1, Illuminati and Illumination of the Mind, the Masonic Compass Square and the connection to measurement of timekeeping, how her Venus and Moon rule, etymology and vocabulary, supplement U1. Go to moorsandmasonry.org to pre-order Moors and Masonry Part 2, the power of Moorish treaties and the recovery of Loss Moorish Sovereignty. Go to moorsandmasonry.org. All right. Due to European conquest of our people, Moors classified as black, and the dismantling of our Moroccan Empire, our recovery of our lost sovereignty, our recovery of our lost Moorish sovereignty, our restoration of our Moorish statehood, our reentering the international community of nations as an old and original state under the reversion of sovereignty are key principles of the law of nations, public international law, to apply in bringing our Moroccan Empire out of a 200-year period of political extinction, collapse, disintegration. All right, so we want to we'll bring forth our guests.
All right.
Brother Mansa Muhammad. All right. Peace, brother.
Peace.
Definitely want to discuss this topic. Just the topic.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Where do you want to start? Where do you want me to start at?
All right. So dealing with the need for a de jure reestablishment of the de jure Moorish government to protect our people. So that's the topic for today: reestablishment of a Moorish government to protect our people.
All right.
So, give us some of your insight on the benefits of doing such.
Hmm. Well, I think when we just sit back and we look at what's actually going on in this country, in this world, especially in this country as it pertains to our people, we can pretty much, it's obvious that unless we take some drastic measures to do for ourselves in all facets of that, then we might as well just kill ourselves essentially, because they even said that there's a study that came out and said by 2050, uh, the quote unquote black population, which we know as our people as Moors, would have a net worth of $0 by the year 2050. Right. So there's already a trajectory and a course that the United States government and entity has a projection for what our people is going to be looking like and and going to have in the future. But on the flip side of that, uh, by 2024, the quote unquote black population, misnomered, our Moorish people, misnomered black, Negro, black, and colored, legally and politically, they're um, we're on poise to spend about $2 billion. I mean, excuse me, $2 trillion.
Yeah.
$2 trillion. So on one hand, we're going to have a net worth of $0 by 2050, yet we're spending $2 trillion a year, right? So that's just for the layman to understand this situation of when we're as Moors speaking about how we are supposed to restore a de jure government for ourselves, because if you don't govern yourselves, you'll be governed by another power, right? So this is the concept, the root concept of sovereignty. A lot of times, we get disparaged. The Moors get grouped in with sovereign citizens. You see, they try to say sovereign citizens are, a particular group that is anti-government, when in fact that was created by Posse Comitatus, a right-wing, um, European-based uh, organization. It has nothing to do with the discussion of the rights of Moors, which pertains to reparations. So we know that reparations itself is supposed to deal with repairing a nation. So it's not just these cash payments that people are talking about. There's actually uh, a restoration of the identity in the nation that was destroyed, right? So we know that when we look at all of these things, we have to say, as Moors, it's a lot of us that already know what time it is, that already understand what has to be done. So the next logical step is, how do we create a government? Because a government governs the nation. You understand? A government protects the rights of its people. And that's what we're missing, right? So how do we get there? What's the first step in getting there? There first has to be an accounting. There has to be a gathering, whether virtually or physically. There has to be a gathering of those who identify as Moors. And it doesn't matter if that gathering, it doesn't matter what school of thought, what perspective you have, what part of the Moorish paradigm is appealing to you. Across the board, this has to be a gathering where all Moors, or those who recognize themselves as such, gather. And then, we have to create a space that can take a consensus of who we are, so we can get a number. That number doesn't have to be public or whatever the case may be. We just we need to understand what we're working with. Some people may say, oh, that's not a good idea because then it puts us all on the radar. But when you are talking about taking these types of steps and the things that we have to do, there has to be some formalization of our organization. Malcolm X, El-Haj Malik Shabazz said, we are disorganized and disunified. So the first thing is there has to be an accounting of some sort. We have to get an understanding of how many Moors there is. I believe there's well over 1 million Moors, as far as those who understand and recognize and embrace the Moorish identity. You could look at TikTok search engine, right, and see that Moors have, hundreds of millions, if not tens of millions, of viewers for the hashtag. So, it's not far out for us to say that we have to make an accounting. That's the first step. The second thing is we have to determine what's the basis of us forming this, because everything we do is going to be based off of what our ancestors have done in regards to the Moorish identity and creating government. So we have to have that convention I spoke about before, where those of us who are the learned among us and those of us who are experts in our fields, who understand the details that pertains to law, government, politics, have to convene and decide for the public in front of our people, what's the best framework what's the best basis, because there's individual actions. Like there's, I know some people disagree or agree, but one of the things that we produced for our community is the status correction process. That's an individual process that is has nothing to do with what people have kind of misconstrued it and perverted it to be in terms of UCCs and things like that. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with ridding ourselves of the badge of slavery, which is prohibited by the 13th Amendment. And it's identified as such in the 13th Amendment as the badge of slavery. So essentially, that's an individual act. There's several different Moors and several different organizations that have produced remedies of all sorts for individual results, which is great, which is what we need, because there needs to be individual action. But when we're talking about creating a government, that's collective action. And that's the ultimate solution to the problems that we're trying to fix as individuals, right? So the collective action is that we have to get an accounting of how many of us there is. And we have to form a basis of what our governmental framework is going to be. When the United States was being formed, and there were conventions that they had, and you had the Federalist Society and other organizations of citizens in the United States that worked together to form what would be the Articles of Association, the Articles of Confederation, and the United States Constitution as we have it now. So the other thing people have to understand is that forming our government does not mean we are ceasing to interface and interact with the United States, because the way this government and this entity was set up, it was set up for the interaction of foreign entities and foreign nations to interface with it. That's what the federal government is there for. It protects the rights as well as controls international trade and commerce, right? And interstate, not interstate, but national trade and commerce as well. So it doesn't mean that we're rejecting the United States or anything like that. The issue becomes the resemblance of what we would be aiming for would look more like something better organized and better and more efficient than what the Native Americans have as far as with the reservations. Okay. The treaties, the Moorish treaties, and the way that the laws are set up is set up in a way for us to interact with the U.S. government on a basis of equal protection and equal justice. And it is international rights, whether that's the rights of the civil and political human rights and other rights, that says that we can ascribe the nationality of our choosing. So this is a right we're talking about exercising when we're talking about establishing the government, right? And corporations can be government. So don't be intimidated by the word government. The de jure, and not that I'm saying it's de jure, because you have de jure and you have de facto. We all know this, but de facto doesn't, it just means in fact. So it may not be lawful, but it's still operating in fact. You see? So what you have to understand is something can operate in fact and not be de jure. So when we're talking about establishing something that's de jure, it has to be on the basis of what came before it and what is lawful. And what is lawful is something that we'd have to discuss at a convention. And what is lawful is pretty much the basis of it is in terms of before colonization, the height and the power of the Moors were Muslim. They were Islamic. Whether you want to say Muslim or Muslim, they were Islamic. And they infused Islamic law into the basis of the government and the international treaties and laws that was made on behalf of the Moors. So these are all things that are key to understand as a basis of forming the government, right? And then what we really need to do is, after that convention, what should come about from that convention or from that gathering is how many of us there is and a new confederacy. You see, because as descendants of the heirs of this dominion, of these lands, we have the ability and the right to judicially among us determine what that name will be and how we're going to form it. And we are invested with those rights and we're executing those rights collectively when we do it. Because what we have to establish is a new confederacy. The way I see it is so many of us, so many organizations and factions, that there has to be a basis in this kind of consistent with all of the ancient forms of governments that we had created, whether that was indigenous Africa or whether that was indigenous America. It was based on having a confederacy. Not saying we want to bring the Southern Confederacy back, but a confederacy is a style of government, and we need to have a basis of which we treat every faction of Moors in relation to it being like a tribe. You see, so this confederacy reform will have a basis of recognizing the different factions as tribes. You see, so that way the confederacy could be a representation of the gathering of these indigenous aboriginal tribes. You see, that we are and that we represent. I can go into more detail, but on a basic level, those are the 3-step things we would have to do to form or reestablish the the Moorish Empire, in modern times. How that is executed, I think it's just all a matter of the will of the people, because the opportunity is there, the technology is there, the knowledge is there, the connectivity is there, the finance and the income is there. We have everything we need to do. We just have to, will it into existence through cooperation. But I'll digress there. And
all right, my let me and I've written, taking some notes here. The accounting, and so you're talking about a census. My experience of 29 years in this being Moorish conscious is that Moors have been guided into individual approaches. Moors have not been guided into large community outreach. You'll hear conscious Moors say, and I've heard this so many times in the 29-year period. I'm in Alabama. I'm the only Moor in Alabama. Now, we know they're not the only Moor in Alabama, or only Moor in Florida, or only Moor in South Carolina. But we got it, that we have to eradicate that. The fact that they do not identify unconscious Moors as Moors. And then once you say, try to attempt to correct them, well, you know what I mean. We have to eradicate that. That's a mindset. Like, see that mindset of saying I'm the only Moor in South Carolina, or I haven't seen a Moor, in a whole week. So that means the only way that statement can be true. The only way it can be true. It can be a true statement. Is that you're in the house by yourself? No. I mean, if for 7 straight days you're in the house by yourself, or you're in a house with Albions, you're the only Moor in a house with Albions for 7 straight days. So the only way they're going to be two ways. You're in the house by yourself, you don't see anyone for 7 days. Or you're in the house with Europeans, we don't see any Moors for 7 days. Then you say, I haven't seen a Moor in 7 days, in a whole week. That statement will be true. That's the only way it can be true. But they don't mean that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't mean that. They mean conscious Moors. And the point I'm making is that conscious Moors have to begin to connect with unconscious Moors. This clubism, this cloak of separation, that, and so therefore there has to be a strategic planning approach to large community outreach, meaning 100,000.
Well, see,
200,000. I'm saying that it can be done, but with strategic planning. It had this individual approach, their own case, that's been pushed, man. I mean, it's been pushed by so many conscious Moors. What say ye?
Mm-hmm. No, I agree 100% with you. I think whatever problems we had as unconscious Moors under Negro, Black, and colored mentality, which the dysfunction that even led to our demise is still a common spirit that runs amongst us, that is premised on individualism. Now, because we're in this country, is capitalism, we're dealing with this entity, this colonial entity. It's based on individualism. The way the United States crafted its economy is you excel if you work in groups, but you can survive as an individual, right? So what it does is it perpetuates a mentality among us that is based on, well, because I don't agree with this one and that one, then I'm going to do my own thing according to how I see it. And I think there has to be a balance between individual action and collective action. And that imbalance is coming from the basis of the disagreements in theology, the basis of disagreement in methodology. Those things are creating a barrier that makes it difficult for the conscious Moors to work together. Now, I think there has to be I think the conscious Moors have to organize among themselves to do the strategic planning to reach the unconscious Moors, because what the unconscious Moors is, or those who understand, know that there's a Moorish paradigm, but they don't identify as a Moor per se. The problem with the issue is that they're looking to those who already claim the Moorish identity to create and establish something worth participating in, where it seems unified and organized. because but most of the way math is, once 15% of a people adopt something, it's only a matter of time before it reach critical mass. That is the critical mass. Once it reach 15%, then you can get to 80%, right? But I think when I'm looking at what's happening now in the space of online, on the internet, social media, and just outside of all of that, just the day-to-day person, the Moorish identity is something that is intriguing to a lot of people. They want to know more about it, but as soon as they start to look into it, they see these bad representations of what the paradigm really stands for. So I think that there's a balance that has to be made so that we can kind of, do the things that we need to do as individuals, because we're only as strong as our weakest link. But we can't let what we do as individually overshadow what we do as collectively, because what we do collectively has more power and more weight than anything that we can do individually. So I definitely agree with I think that everything is in excess is a problem. Anything in excess is an issue, but some things are healthy to a degree. When I look at some of the clubism that we may have among our people, the conscious Moors, right? There's that need for the tribalism. It's because our tribes were broken up. The way we're responding to reacting to the get back from this colonial trauma that we've been through is getting in our cliques, right? People get into their cliques, it's tribalism is essentially what it is. That is an expression for the need for tribe, is what the clubism energy is misplaced in. Because, and this is why I said there has to be a level of understanding how to put the unity together. Because when you ignore the differences that that people are having, for instance, when you look at a body, not every body part could be a finger, not every body part could be an elbow, not every body part could be a nose, but it takes these different parts to make up, the whole, because we have Moors that specialize in so many different fields. Moors that specialize in commerce, Moors that specialize in law, Moors that specialize in so many different fields. It's how do we bring all of that together so that we all could benefit. So I agree with you ultimately, but I'm just saying that there has to be a balance of that with the collective, the individual and the collective, and that we need to put something, those who are conscious need to put something on the table that is attractive to the unconscious more, so that we can gain a bigger audience, a bigger more people, and so that we can have victories and show the people things that we can do, and so we can get more participation from the best among us, so I'll say that.
Okay.
Yes, we're going to bring Brother Alamar in. Welcome to the show, brother. How you doing?
Peace. Can you hear me?
Peace. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
I'm doing all right. Just tuned in. Caught the last couple seconds, so
All right.
y'all, fill me in or.
Yeah, well, we're pretty much just discussing, more. What would it take to establish a Moorish government? For the Moors, for the conscious and unconscious. So what are your broad thoughts on that?
Man. Well, first it's just gonna take some dedicated brothers, and they're gonna need the resources.
And sisters, and some sisters, right?
Yeah. Of course, absolutely. Brothers and sisters, as well with the resources. The resources needs to be there, and I think that's probably why it hasn't been done yet. Those that have the resources are not involved with the movement, and those involved with the movement simply don't have the resources. So that's what I kind of think is the bottom line of it, because we got enough people that can fulfill the roles and duties, but do they want those roles and duties? And can they be compensated for their labor? Those are key things that come to mind when I think about that. Do we need a Moorish government again? Absolutely. We don't actually have due process, equal protection, all of these so-called rights guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution are in practice not enforced when it comes to quote unquote Black Americans, African Americans, or even if they identifying as Moors. Um, so yeah, it's something that it's inevitable.
Well, the fact that people are classified as black is a crime against humanity. So the fact that exists, the fact that you can go to any job, any hospital, and see on a form black, that's a crime against humanity. So you're absolutely right. Let's just start there. That's a crime against humanity. Black shouldn't exist on any form, anywhere. Like, we didn't put it on there. Like, we don't write. You never write nothing. No one writes black on the form. It's already on there. It's already on the form. It's no, like, you don't write black. They don't have like nationality, the word nationality, and then you put write black in. All right. So that is a crime against humanity. So that's the piggy bank.
It's also a violation of the prohibitions of the 13th Amendment that prohibits the badges, vestiges, relics, and incidents of slavery. So to create, a lot of times our people too, like one of I would say this too. Remember when you said there has to be strategic outreach to the unconscious Moors. Unconscious Moors have embraced the black identity for, or black as being a part of it, right?
By force.
Well, I would say
education,
right?
By education, we're taught that we have black skin. First and foremost, in the home, I would say. I can't really recall no public teachers telling me that I was black, but I can recall family telling me that, using those descriptions. But then there's a catch-22 when you get into business, as you said, with the forms. So on one end, we are teaching ourselves that we're black, not distinguishing between race, color, nationality. Those things are largely not taught in the home amongst blacks. And then you get into society and you see black on the form. Well, that's me. This is what I've been taught the last 15 years, 18 years, however old the person is.
Let me explain what I mean by force, because it's done by force. In order for millions of Chinese to start calling themselves yellow, what would have to happen? What would have to happen for millions of Chinese to start calling themselves yellow, writing it down, say it loud, I'm yellow, I'm proud? Like, what would have to happen? Like, there would have to be some military invasion, some force of taking the children at age 6 days old, 6 months old, all right, and then over the period of say 100 years, all right, that you're not going to get you're not going to get a million of Chinese in 1 year saying they're yellow. In a period of 100, I'm going to explain what I mean by force, because I said force.
I get where you're going. The source of it is legislation. I get where you're going. The slave legislation.
Yeah.
No.
Explain first.
Let me finish my point. No, it's not legislation. Let me just finish my point about force. It's not legislation, meaning that China, to get millions of Chinese, it's done through military. You have to invade China. A country has to invade China, put the Chinese people in physical captivity, take the children, because this is what they take the children, 6 days old, 6 months old, a year old, from the parents, put them in orphanages. Because this happened. This happened. Inquisition against the Moors, so these things happen. So I'm not all right. So when you talk about war and captivity, then 100 years later, then you have millions of Chinese, welcome and more, because that's not legislation. That's through invasion. That's through conquest. All right. Now you talk about
legislative aspect is still there.
No, I'm saying
go ahead.
I'm saying to initiating it. Initiating it's not legislation. Maintaining it. Initiation is not legislation. Initiation is war and conquest. Maintaining it is legislation.
But
so I'm not disagreeing with legislation, but that's not initiation. Conquest is first. Then maintaining it is legislation. I'm with you. Yeah.
No, I don't disagree. I'm just saying that if a country is going to send some troops anywhere, it's going to be done within the scope of their law, which is their legislation. Even when we're talking about the Inquisition, they passed legislation to strip the Moors of their identity. They passed legislation to, what do they call it when they kick you out the country? Exile. You get exiled. That's legislate. That's done by all of these things was done by legislation. The papal bulls were legislation for those countries or those governments. Even the doctrine of discovery. Go out, take the sovereignty from the Moors, take their property. These are legislative documents that they followed on with, as you said, war and physical action. But it was put in writing first from the high commanders, the people in power.
Let me address the Inquisition, because it's not legislation.
Hold on, I wasn't finished making an initial point I was making, but it's both of what you guys are saying is it coincides. The point Ilham is making is that the legislative part, meaning that when a law, bull, edict, anything like that is issued, when war is initiated, it's coming from decree, which is part of the definitions of legislation, right? And you're saying that it takes physical action to subject the people to take their identity. They're not going to give it up willingly. We know what imperialism and colonialism was, and that was the physical actions carried out to do the physical subjugation of putting us into a mentality where we're accepting color as identity and not actually nationality. But the point I'm making is I'm not against it being forced. I'm not saying it wasn't legislated. I'm not saying that I agree that the fact that it's legislation that made it go to war. When they went to war, they took the physical power, and then they also created and maintained a system of it through legislation. What I'm saying is, however our people currently operate, they have embraced the Black identity, is what I'm saying. And because of that, we have to be strategic, like you said, strategic outreach. We have to be strategic in how we communicate to them about the Black identity, because they've accepted it so much that when you say we're not Black, you're not Black, this means this and this means that, you're shaking them out of a reality that they've become comfortable with. So they feel like it's an attack. So they're not hearing everything that needs to be heard. So I'm just saying that because of that, the education process of what Black is legally and politically is the portion that's missing from their reality. And that's why we have a level of so many unconscious Moors who actively fight against Moors, who are trying to expose them to the reality that this the Black identity, in terms of legally and politically, and lawfully, what it represents. But I'll digress there.
All right, let me say this. I'm going to address the issue of legislation about there was a violation of the Treaty of Granada. The Treaty of Granada of November 25th, 1491 protects the Moorish right. It's a surrendering treaty. Muhammad the 12th. So was that under the Nasrid dynasty? The last Moorish stronghold under the Nasrid dynasty held Granada from 1235 to November 25th, 1491. That treaty protects Moorish rights. So there's a treaty there in place to protect Moorish rights. It was a violation of that treaty by Philip I violating that treaty. So we're looking at a treaty violation issue. I'm going to put that. Also, the reason I make it dealing with where I disagree that our people are accepting it, because once we use the word accept, now I'm in the international arena. Now we're talking international. I'm not talking the United States courts. I'm not talking no state courts. I'm talking in the International Court of Justice. If Terrence, representing us as a jurist, comes out of his mouth and says the word willing, accept, he just dismisses our claim. This is why I was saying a word force, crime against humanity. Once we use the word willing, accept, you dismiss the claim in the International Court of Justice. That's a crime against humanity. Because if you're saying that if people's accepting it, we under principles of contract law, using the word willfully and accept under contract law principles, this means that we knowingly, willingly, voluntarily, intentionally, we didn't know, meaning that if Terrence, you, all of us, those who listen to us, we were born in captivity. We were born in a state of subjugation. Our mother went into the hospital on a foreign vessel without a Moorish flag, abandoned as an abandoned ship. Our mothers, our fathers, grandmothers, grandmothers, aunts, when we were born, our aunts, our uncles, our mothers, our fathers, our grandfathers, grandmother did not know that Moorish identity. We were put, so from birth, from conception, even to birth, born in captivity, under subjugation, not even after being born, not having been taught our nationality, our philosophy, our culture, our folk ways, our festivals, our holidays. So any actions that we done, there was no full disclosure. So we couldn't have knowingly, willingly, intentionally, voluntarily, because without the knowledge of your culture and then being taught it for one day, I'm talking about being raised up in it. So I'm just looking at the concept of contract and using the word and not dismissing. I want to bring the claim of crime against humanity. You're talking about generational, those who died 200 years, those who lived and died over the period of 200 years, those who have lived and died over a period of 200 years, they've been abused too. I'm not talking about those who are living now. Those who have lived and died over 200 years, not having the knowledge of their nationality, culture, rituals, festivals, philosophy. That is a crime against humanity, generational crime against humanity, strategic, generational mass denationalization, which is a crime against humanity.
No, I agree. I agree with that position, but I understand you on mute, Manson.
Okay,
I
I
understand what he Manson meant by accept. I agree with you though. I agree with you. But
let me
ahead,
say this. Let me say this. What I disagree with.
Mhm.
This is the part I disagree with. We cannot sit here and act. Okay, when you say that the people haven't been educated, you're out there. We're out there. And there were Moors long before us for the last 100 years, starting with the Moorish Hebrew Zionist temple, going into your Moorish Science temple with Noble Drew Ali. When there's been 100 years of our people out here teaching the truth about what the nationality is, who we are, the slavery, how we were subjugated, how we were stripped of our identity. Congress even made an apology for slavery, saying that the quote unquote African was subjected to indignities of being stripped to their names and heritage. So we're not arguing about the physical subjugation and the physical abuse that went on to cause us to forget who we are. We're not in disagreeing with that. What here's where we differ. Here's the fork in the road between you and I. What you're saying. You're saying that the claim is reduced internationally once we say that they were willingly and knowingly accepted this, right? What I'm saying is it's time for the Moors who are conscious that they're Moors to make moves between themselves, because it's enough that already know what it is. Outreach that needs to go to the unconscious Moors is a part of that, but that's not the main piece here, because they have accepted it. You can go to somebody who's aware right now that the Moors exist, what the Moors are teaching, and you can ask them, do you identify as a Moor or do you identify as Black African American? They're going to tell you Black African American after being educated. Now, I'm not saying that the effects of colonization, the effects of all of these different things isn't contributing to the psychosis that they want to deny this portion of their heritage. I'm not saying that's not the case. But we have to accept that in contract law, number one, ignorance is no excuse of the law. So the fact that when the claim is made that they don't know, when we got even though UNDRIP is not something that's legally binding, it says it in there about the rights to create your nationality, to even recreate your culture and history. We have the civil and political human rights from the United Nations that speaks about everyone shall have a right to a nationality and should not be deprived of it. So the reality is that when we say they haven't been educated, that's not right and exact, because we have 100-year history. We've documented it on our websites. You've documented it. You have books about it. The reality is it's a large portion of unconscious Moors who don't and will not acknowledge that they are. So is the movement is the claim that we take to the international court, is the claims that we make supposed to be stifled because we don't have all 44 billion or 48
I never made that point. No.
I'm just saying. So
yeah,
that's
I never
made
that point.
Okay, well, that's why I'm saying.
But I'm leaving that point. But let me. All right, let me.
I'm not finished. I'm just finish up the point. That's why I'm saying that we can't. The time to speak for the unconscious Moors, that's something that could be done later. It's up to the conscious Moors who know who they are to make these claims in international court, because they're the ones who recognize that we did not willingly and knowingly accept the identity. That's the point I'm making.
All right, this is
now,
my
make claims in the international court, the International Court of Justice, when they only accept claims from governments.
All right, this is my rebuttal. I'm in the International Court of Justice as a Moorish. I am a jurist in the International Court of Justice. I am a Moorish ambassador to the United Nations. duly appointed by a Moorish head of state in a Moorish national governing structure. All right. I bring my team of researchers, 200 years of history textbooks, 200 years of history textbooks that used from all 50 states. I'll use the textbooks as part of evidence in 50 states, history textbooks as evidence that we have not been taught. In the history textbooks in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Wisconsin, continue naming them. I'll use those history textbooks as documentary evidence to make my claim of crime against humanity that these Moors who've been put into these schools have not been taught in the schools, forced in subjugation, generational. Also, the race and ethnic standards for federal statistics and administrative reporting adopted by the Office of Management of Budget, which is called Statistical Policy Number 15. I remember one of my exes. We had this is over 20 years ago. She had to go to the emergency room, and she said, the woman was name such and such, and then she said, "You never asked me what my nationality is." Oh, I put, and then she showed her that she put black. A Moor classifies black, dark olive Moor, secretary, check black off for her. So how does she, all right, this worker, all right, another point. I remember being in discussion and I was working in school, and this is in my book, y'all. This is chapter 12 of Moors and Masonry part 2. Chapter 12 of Moors and Masonry part 2 I'm about to talk about. I was in the teachers lounge with 10 teachers, and I was explaining to them that nationality is not based in shade and color, right? One of the teachers blurted out, that's not the real world. So I turned to her and said, well, nationality is the real world. China, Chinese, France, French. This is in the beginning of chapter 12 of Moors and Masonry part 2, coming your way soon. It took me a long time. It wasn't until December of last year when I got back on Moors and Masonry part 2 when it dawned on me why she said that. For all those years, I never focused on why she said it. I only focused on what she said. It wasn't until I was at the computer the first week of December of last year when I got back on Moors and Masonry part 2. And I was on that section. I said, oh, I know why she said that. Why would she say nationality is not the real world? I said, oh, as a teacher, she has to what? Under the race and ethnic standards for federal statistics administrative reporting adopted by the Office of Management Budget 1977. How many blacks? Because I had to do it. How many? You got 10 blacks, 15 Hispanics. She got to do that. Oh, when she had children, she check black off. So she doesn't see the word nationality does not. The word nationality only appears on forms in the Office of Citizen and Immigration. The word nationality does not appear on forms at the hospitals we go to, at the schools we take our children, at the recreation centers we take our children. We do not see the word nationality at all. We see the word race. It'll have black nigga color.
They different forms. If you're a foreigner and you're having a child in, let's say, Philly, they're gonna present you a form that they don't present Americans.
No, I said we don't. I said we don't. I'm gonna say what I said. I said we Moors classified as black. We Moors classified as black, Negro, colored, African American can go their whole life and not see a form with the word nationality on it.
Yeah,
I'm talking about we Moors classified. I'm being very clear. Moors classified as black, Negro, colored, and African American.
Yeah, because they're citizens. They're U.S. citizens. They're considered to be Americans, and American nationality is USA on the passports and pretty much all the other.
Don't have black on there. Black's not on the passport. Why not?
No, they don't. They don't put because
Black's
it's
not,
for foreign countries.
Negroes not on the passport.
It's
But-
for
but
foreign
see-
countries.
Hold on, colors.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm
They
not
got
confused.
there's Negroes
Colors
in
not on the
every country.
passport.
No, it's not.
Negroes
It's
in every
not.
country.
Hold on. African Americans not on the. Huh? Hold on, I'm lost.
But see, I'm gonna tell. Let me hold on. Let me. You're right. But here's the thing about that. This is why I'm saying that the fork in the road for me is that I agree with everything you're saying about the crimes against the Moors and we wasn't educated properly. The situation gets sticky when you have unconscious Moors trying to make strides on behalf of all Moors, and you're being counteracted by unconscious Moors who have no interest in ever claiming the identity. Because along with that we don't even got to look far. The whole concept of critical race theory, they're purging it from schools teaching about how slavery impacted American history. That's being purged from the books. And that's actively taking place through legislation where people have the rights to vote on these issues and come out against it, so on and so forth. Then you have the Black Caucus, right? The Black Caucus that sits in government positions there. And they're supposed to be in charge of getting legislation passed on behalf of the unconscious Moors. So my point is that the claims that can be brought to international court, like you said, right? You are Moorish diplomat representing this government. That entity that's going to send that representative out has to be formed first. And it's not going to be formed with the participation of unconscious Moors because they don't acknowledge or claim the identity. When there's enough who do to make claims on behalf of the entire group. Just like when Israel got their reparations, they made a right to return. To anyone who's a descendant of Israel could file a claim later and then be able to get the nationality and go to Israel and have their own, and have a place to go. Okay, but it wasn't it wasn't all people who were claiming Jews or descent of Israel. It was the people who identified it, put that in place, put that in motion, and opened the door up for the other undeclared Israelis to come in later
with
on.
United States help, with Great Britain help.
No,
United
they
States help and Great Britain help now. United States
No, they
help
did help.
and Great
They did help. They set it up. They set it up. They the ones who.
I'm just saying. I want the audience to know that. I just want the audience to know with the United States help and Great Britain help. That's all.
Yeah, they did.
Because you don't want to assume the audience may not know that.
When the Hebrew Israelites from the United States went to Israel, they were told that they weren't halachically Jews.
Right. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we haven't been miseducated. What I'm saying is the conscious Moors, it's up to the conscious Moors to put all that in motion. Because if you go trying to speak on behalf of the unconscious Moors, you can't make the claim properly. Because the first thing they're going to get hit with when you talk about contract law is consent. And then ignorance is no excuse of the law. So if you did never reserve your rights in these agreements, whereas if it was something in the contract that was an adherence or you didn't know was there, if you didn't reserve your rights in contract law, you can't make the claim that this is something that violated your rights. So the reality is that there's a major segment of unconscious Moors who will never claim the Moorish identity. It is wasted energy and time to be spent on them when the energy could be spent on Moors who are conscious, going and setting things up and then opening up the doors for others to come in and gain access in a de jure and lawful way to the access to their identity and heritage that was stripped from them. Because the other dynamic is when you have the reason they play the race game on us is because Federal Directive 15 governs the racial classification. So if you're not foreign, if you're a U.S. citizen, they're governing you not based on your ethnic origins, but only insofar as your ethnic origins tie into their racial classification. This is why all of them say they descend from original peoples or have origins in original peoples, except the classification of Black. Black says that you have origins in the Black racial groups of Africa, cutting people off from the human family in that context, because Black racial groups of Africa means slave groups of Africa. You see, so you're but you're not going to get the average or most of Black people to want to reject that definition or the application of that definition to get in front of International Criminal Court or the International Court and make those claims. Those claims have to be made by conscious Moors, is the main point I'm making. We've all been involved in this movement for a very long time. You, us, and so many others. I'm past the point of trying to convince. I think that's already happening. There's a lot of unconscious Moors who are becoming way and way more conscious of their Moorish identity and heritage. This is a natural phenomenon that's taking place, of course. But at the same time, if you've been in this game and you've been in this movement, it's past trying to wake everybody up. There's enough of us who are already awoke who can make these claims that, yeah, you miseducated us, you forced this education on us, you stripped us of these rights and these. Only the Moors who are conscious and who have made the claim that they are can make the claim that they were subjected to these indignities and these crimes against humanity, because we've acknowledged that we're Moors and we acknowledge that these things were done to us. That is not available for the unconscious Moor who wants to be Black,
and even
legally and politically.
Even the conscious Moors still have a hurdle, because I personally think conscious Moors need to get their resources together and set up their own damn court. The International Court of Justice ain't nothing but another European court. But let's say we want to take that option, we still have to have state status. You have to have state
I'm clear on that.
status
I'm clear on that.
to even get your case heard in that particular court. So
Yeah, that's what this. That's what this.
No,
Well, I'm saying that's what this presentation is about.
Right.
So when I said, remember, when we understand what I said, that I am duly appointed. Remember my example. I'm duly appointed as ambassador, Moorish ambassador. I'm duly appointed in the body of a national Moorish governing structure. So I'm talking statehood. All right. Remember, that's the example that I gave. I put my example in that context. Okay. And I'm very aware. I just want to say I put my example in that context. I'm very aware. When it needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when it comes to establishing this government or this state, like Ilamir said, it's come back, and that's why I started out with the fact that as a people we're spending $2 trillion a year. You see, so again, I think that the real discussion for the sovereignty and the statehood and establishing of the government comes about with the discussion of reparations, because the reality is part of being made whole or part of the repairing process is the recognition of the government, the sovereignty, the identity. We have a precedent for this because they did it when they recognized Liberia as a country. That was in the middle of the Civil War. The Civil War wasn't even over yet, but they had Russia. Britain was the first to recognize Liberia as a sovereign state, etc. So we've seen them recognize those who are former slaves or whatever the case may be as having sovereignty. They did it in the Civil War with Liberia. So we have a precedent. No,
I was going to say, but not having sovereignty in America.
No, understood. And that's why I'm saying the type of deal we need to be going for is a hybrid between what the Native American Indians have with the reservations and the Israel deal. That's what Moors, we need to put those two packages together. Moors like packages. We need to put those two packages together, and that's the solution. You know, that's how we need to put style what we want, because the conversation of reparation is popular among our people, but they're not going to get anywhere because they can't get over the legal hurdle or the law barrier of slavery being legal during the time it was legal. So they'll have to get legislation passed, and legislation isn't going to come about unless they take a major loss in the courts, or at least if there's a major push for that to be recognized as the fact that slavery was illegal when it pertained to us. And it would have to be a body politic of Moors who step up in some kind of organized fashion and make that claim. And then we can request for the Israel and the American Indian style reparation package. You see, because that is the only way that we'll be able to address all of the grievances, like you said, the miseducation part, the mislabeling us. They see a lot
All
of times when
those badges of slavery.
Absolutely. A lot of times our people, when they hear you say we not black, they think you saying something against their dark skin. You see, psychologically, this is how they process it. So when you say that to them, they don't want to hear anything else because they think you are you hate yourself, you self-hatred. You know, you don't hate your skin. Because what they did during slavery is they made the skin complexion a badge itself, and they made it synonymous with the political and legal status of black. You see, we see that in the Abraham Lincoln case with Dungy. Spencer versus Dungy. We see it in that case where the Moor was from Portugal, but he was a Moor and he had dark skin and he was called black. He was called nigger, right? He was called black because black just means
his nickname was Black Bill.
See, so he got called, but his nickname is cool. That's cool. But when he got called that as a political and legal status, he had to sue. He had to bring a claim of action because it was an assault on his character. We can see with the Moors, the Free Sundry Moors in 1791, I believe it was. Soon as the Negro Act dropped, they petitioned to not be classified under that status. You see what I'm saying? So my point is that that status has to be rejected, and it is that particular status that they made synonymous with the skin complexion. That's what our people don't understand. They don't understand when you're saying I'm not black, Negro, and colored. I'm not that legally and politically or lawfully. Yeah, that doesn't mean I reject the dark skin I have. You
Absolutely, that's not what you mean, but that's what how they're taking it. Exactly. Absolutely correct on that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We was uneducated, brainwashed. You know, the legislations using Negro for the centuries is what assisted with creating the culture where everybody's calling us black, not just ourselves, other groups, and that's coming from the fact that that's what they had in slave legislations, Negro, so on and so forth. So when you put certain things in the law, they become a part of the culture of society, even if you change the law later. These things still linger. That's why they call it the lingering vestiges and badges of slavery.
Yeah, and another part when you brought up bringing up establishing our own court, the thing about it is, for a long time, you know, it was our philosophy and our perspective that you have to address correcting or changing that badge of slavery, black, that's on you legally and politically, so to fully be in the proper character and person as a Moor, right? But at the same time, there's basic constitutional rights that exist that gives us the basis to be able to make the moves that needs to be made, like the freedom of self-determination. You see, we have the right to self-determination.
That's
and
international law. That's international. That's under that's a just cogent. Just cogent. It's our international law. It has that's which is the United States. It's not United States law. It's international law. It's a just cogent. That's JUS. It's a term. space COGEN, just cogent, and and self determination is just cogent, and that cannot be removed or taken away. All right, it's inherent. So I
Well,
just want
see,
to let people know that that's the international law term and falls in the realm of the law of nations, public international law.
and that's what I was going to say next is the fact that the U.S. Constitution itself doesn't grant rights. It provides protections for pre-existing rights. You see, it doesn't. The Constitution is not giving us the right to self-determination, the right
It's
to free speech.
memorializing them.
Right, and it's memorializing them, and it's supposed to protect these pre-existing rights, meaning that before it became a government, before they became a nation, before they had this constitution, these rights already existed. It's just that this constitution is protecting that right and memorializing, like you said. So that's important to understand because, like you said, it is an international cognate, just cognate. It is something. It's a maxim that because it's a part of the civil and political, the Declaration of Human Rights. But at the same time,
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but we just gotta deal with the reality. Ain't none of these courts
Oh, I thought we weren't
trying
we're
to
not dealing
give
with
the
reality.
Moors
No.
relief. Don't none of these courts
I thought we
want
dealing with
to put
reality.
the Moors back in power. They don't want to do it, and they ain't gonna do it. So we got to form our own state and courts. That's
what this discussion is about.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
how do you think we can do that?
When we venture off into discussing the immediate solutions available with these other courts that we could bring claims in there if we want, we want to test the waters.
I've been talking about International Court of Justice. I ain't saying nothing about the United States courts.
They all the same to me.
I was saying it.
No,
they're not the same now.
They all the same to me.
We got listeners now. We got listeners. Hold on.
Well, he doesn't mean.
We got listeners, but I'm saying
we got listeners now. Gotta be careful.
When he saying the same, Gabe, explain.
Let me explain. You gotta only because we got trust. Please hear me out, please.
Yeah,
I've been doing this for 29 years. Please hear me out. They're gonna run with it, brother. Please trust me. When you say they're all the same, and you don't clarify that, they're gonna say, "I was on, a Moroccan Post, and Alamar said." Alamir said, I'm telling you what that, brother, 29 years, brother, dealing with thousands of people. They're going to say, Alamir said that the International Court of Justice and United States courts are the same. Brother, I'm telling you, from 29 years of experience dealing with thousands of people, bro, that's why you need to clear, because you're dealing with areas of jurisdiction. So you said they're the same, which means when you use the word same, that means there's no difference. So explain.
This is why I'm gonna tell you where my comment derives from. The fact that many of the judicial officers and prosecutors are from the barristers or bar associations from the U.S., England, Rome. I mean, all international countries, we can say. You have attorneys who come from the U.S., for example, France, and end up working in the ICJ or other United Nations forums because they have licenses to practice law, and they can go be lawyers for any one of these agencies as long as they put in the application. That's why I say that. So you have a system of a control over the lawyers internationally. So they're all running off of very similar pretenses when it comes to black people. I mean, even the black folks in government ain't necessarily
Fiction and law. Fiction and law. No such people.
Yeah, okay.
And
Well,
Barack Obama
the
was very clear on that
unconscious,
too. Barack Obama
the
was very clear on that.
unconscious indigenous people that work in government are
Mhm.
not necessarily out to assist their people, their ethnic group, rather.
So when you say
They're cooning, man. They're cooning.
yeah, when
Yeah,
you say
yeah,
when you
They're
say
cooning. They're cooning. Man.
Yeah.
when you say that there's a difference in the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court
Yes.
and in the United States federal courts,
Yes.
but the same level of injustice, I think the more directly what the brother meant as far as the same is, they're all operating the people in the positions of power.
This is what I'm
The
saying.
people in
The
positions
people,
of power are all operating off of the same doctrine to suppress the Moors and suppress our people internationally. So even when you go to the ICJ, you know, if let's say we form everything we need to form and we go there, it's not that we should be actually thinking they're going to do the right thing, but it's just a formality in the process of it. And the brother is also saying that something that's even better than that is just organizing among ourselves, which we have to do anyway. Even if we want to go to the ICJ with claims,
We have to organize
be
among ourselves. But I'm saying, but that's a great step, though. That's
you
a
got to
great,
be a state.
no,
You got to be a state.
we-
That right there,
brother. We already we passed that point. We already know that.
The fact that you got to be a state to
Absolutely.
get some relief from the international court says a whole lot right there. When you have groups like so-called African Americans
No
still
such people.
suffering the lingering vestiges of slavery. So
Well,
what
I
you're
mean,
saying
the fact
how
we
do
saying
they
African American
get
is one.
relief?
Absolutely, the fact that we saying African American is evident of crime against humanity.
that they're not going to deal with
Because there's no such people.
Unless you
There's no such people.
Unless you
can't deal with
miraculously form a state.
No, I'm saying you can't deal with you cannot deal with any blacks, Negro, colors, African Americans, because they don't exist. It's a fiction in law. Barack Obama, when he was interviewed on Tom Joyner's show after he won his first term, this interview is on YouTube, but they cut out the introduction. You'll go right to they'll go right into the discussion. They cut the introduction out. They always introduce the guests. Barack Obama, Tom Joyner introduced Barack Obama after he won his first term as the first black president of the United States. Barack Obama immediately responded by saying, "I'm not black. Black's a fiction in law."
His mother's white.
No, brother. No, brother.
His mother's white. His
Your
father's
brother.
from Kenya. His father's not American.
Let me say this again for the audience. Let me talk to the audience. He said, "I am not black. Black is a fiction in law." He didn't say, "I am not black. I have a white mother." Black is a fiction. He defined black. A fiction in law. He was very clear. He defined it. He didn't say,
I didn't see it. I didn't see it. You got
I'm saying to you, it's the introduction is not on there. They edited it out. The interview is on YouTube. I heard it. I saw it when it first came out. The introduction's not there. They'll go right into the interview. And it's in the introduction. It's not on YouTube. It's that part is edited out. He said, "I am not black. Black's a fiction in law." He was abundantly clear. You can't get any clearer than that.
Yeah, well, I didn't see it. I didn't hear.
No, but I'm saying, but it doesn't. All right, whether you saw it or not, it doesn't remove the fact that black's a fiction in law. Like, you don't have to hear Barack Obama say it. Like, I don't need Barack Obama to say that for that to exist as a truth. Black's a fiction in law. I don't need Barack Obama to say it.
Yeah, I think.
I was just making a point that whether you saw it or not, it doesn't change the fact that blacked a fictional law. That's all. That's the point I was making.
One thing I think too is we're very familiar with the aspects of the Moorish paradigm where we understand what black is legally, politically. Like it's a we understand that. But I think this is the reality aspect of it is even though that is the case, that's not how they operated. Like I think as Moors, those of us who know the differences and the details of how you can't, like in law, be a color. You have to be of some line of descent, with your nationality. But it's also, like I said earlier, we can't act like the fictions that they've created don't have real life consequences. And we can't kind of speak in a way that ignores that there are people who identify as such, because within the U.S. context, like I've been around the world, nobody uses color. It's all about your nationality. It's all about what country you're from, what's your nation, what passport you got. Nobody's running off of color, even though color may be associated in prevalency with more certain nations than others, right? But in the U.S., they literally have a racial classification structure that they say has nothing to do with anthropology or science. But it's a real classification that they're using and that people identify with in that construct. So black and white may not exist as realities in international law as people, but in the U.S. construct, in the racial construct,
it's mass denationalization. It's mass denationalization. Of course.
So I think
exists because there's a crime against, they launched a crime against humanity among our people for generations. It exists because the Moors have not organized into a national political governing structure to address the atrocity, the crime against humanity. That's why they still exist.
Agree. That's the reason why. And here's another thing. There was a news article where there was a poll taken. I think it was a national poll taken by. It was having all of our people vote on whether they wanted to be colored, Negro, Moorish American, Ethiopian was on there. All of these different statuses was on there. They chose to go with black.
Yeah, but why though? See,
no. What I'm saying is, I understand that.
All right. I don't put no legit. We don't want to put no legitimacy to that.
No.
I got you.
It's not about legitimacy. What the reality is, we are forced to deal with the reality that there has to be a delineation made between those Moors who are conscious and Moors who are unconscious.
Education, but we're going to educate our people, man.
There's the purpose of this discussion is not about educating our people. It's about how we're going to form a government. The government ain't going to get formed with people who don't recognize or claim that or acknowledge their Moorish identity, who still claim that they're black, African, Negro.
We have to educate.
I'm not saying we're not, but that's a different process and a different issue than forming the government.
I disagree. Let me explain why I disagree.
Hold on. Before you get to disagree, I got to make this point. You can't make a government with unconscious Moors who identify as Negro, black, and colored.
I never said that. I never said that. No. But I never made that claim.
I never said you did.
All right. All right. So
I'm saying that because we have to accept that educating our people is a separate issue from forming government now.
I disagree.
Okay.
Let me explain why I disagree. In political science, all right? Just give me an opportunity.
No,
I'm refuting, and I'm going to give basis for my refuting. In political science, there's a term called political legitimacy. In order for a government to be legitimate, it has to have the consent of the people. What conscious Moors have been doing for 100 years is getting 4 people. I'm not exaggerating. There are conscious Moors have been doing this for years. and claiming that they have a national government with 5 or 10 conscious Moors. That if we say the Moorish National Federal Republic government, and they have 10 Moors, conscious Moors. They have that is not political legitimacy. Political legitimacy means when you're talking government, you're talking the people. When you say the people, you're talking about the repository of the collective sovereignty of the people. Government equals the people and the consent of the people, the collective sovereignty of the people. You must facilitate political legitimacy in order for that a said government to be legitimate. You need the people. Without the people, you have no government. You cannot form legitimacy outside of the consent of the people. Therefore, you need to facilitate mass community outreach, which conscious Moors are, brother. The reason it can be done, it has not been a focus, as I said before, an hour ago. The focus has been for 29 years. I got 29 years of my observation dealing with thousands of conscious Moors. The focus has been individual cases. Individual. The focus has not been to deal with community outreach. Conscious Moors are not directed, my other conscious Moors, to go out to the community. They're not. Conscious Moors are directed. This is 29 years of my observation. There were thousands of Moors, but I've been active, bro. I've been involved. So when I say thousands of Moors, I am not exaggerating. Thousands of Moors. They have been directed to deal with their own personal cases. They have not been directed to go out into the community. They have not.
Well, this is what I want to refute. I disagree with Moors not going out into the community. This isn't. We live in the age of the internet, and every YouTube channel that Moors have, where they're talking about the identity, the status, the heritage, every one of us, from the ones with thousands. Hold on. You talking about community outreach?
It's not reaching the community, brother. It's not reaching the community.
Yes, it is.
It's not, brother. It's not reaching the community, brother.
Hold on. Let me finish. When you say the community, who you talking about?
All right, let me explain. All right, now you asked me a question. Yeah, but just please. No, you asked me a question. Yeah,
who's the community?
You asked me a question.
Okay.
If I go walk around Camden, I walk the streets of Camden, Philadelphia, Watts, Compton. Walk the streets. If I walk 20 blocks in Watts, 20 blocks New York, 20 block radius in Philadelphia, 20 block radius in Houston, 20 block radius in Atlanta, how many of those who I will bump into will know that they're Moors? I'm talking, bro, conscious Moors experience is on just social media. I'm talking about boots on the ground. Boots on the ground. It's not reaching the community, brother.
Well, when I'm out there, hold on. When I'm out there, see, here's the thing. When I'm out there, I go to the masjid. I see a whole bunch of Moors in there wearing their fezzes. Salam, Mo. When I'm out and about, I run into, I was just in somewhere in Decatur in Atlanta. I just seen some brother with a fez on walking around with a thobe on. I'm like, what's going on? To me, I don't know, maybe it's different up north, but to me, the message is reaching the community. To me, it is. No. I'm seeing it in my daily life. Me personally, I am though.
I'm not. Okay, which is fine. You are. You show one or two. I'm not.
Right. I think both forms is necessary. The outreach that Manson's talking about is necessary, and I think the outreach Abdullah's talking about is necessary.
I'm not saying it's not, but what I'm
saying is when you talk about boots on the ground, state to state, resources is needed for that. That's why it hasn't been done.
See, okay, and what I'm saying is the reason it hasn't been done is because we're focusing. With the issue is when you say that Moors have been directed. You said you've met thousands upon thousands of Moors. You met thousands of Moors in 29 years. Thousands of Moors.
Yes.
Who we already got the numbers. Thousands over 29 years. Thousands, right? How many thousands every year?
Hold on, brother. When I say thousands, I travel too.
Right.
No, brother. There's millions of unconscious Moors. How many
of the conscious? How many of the conscious ones?
Hold on, brother. I'm going to have to explain my part. This is for the audience too.
Okay.
So when I say thousands of Moors, I've traveled. So I have made may come across where I've gone to Columbus, Ohio 3 times. Where I've been, we're talking about the class in New York, where we had classes in New York from 2006 up until 2018, right? And they've come from the North Jersey and did all 5 boroughs, all right? And then we did that for a period of time, all right? I've gone to Camden classes, Philadelphia classes in so. But I'm saying, so when I say thousands of Moors, I'm talking about dealing with different areas. But if I were to do a 20-block radius in Harlem, because those outside did not know that they're Moors. We didn't go. We stayed in the building. We did not go have boots on the ground. We did not have a stable. We did not set like Sinetta. We were not like Sinetta. Sinetta was right across the street from the Apollo Theater. A conscious Moor did not set up like Sinetta. Sinetta had pictures right directly across the street from Apollo Theater. Sinetta TV. He had pictures on the wall. He was out there, visible. I'm talking about that. 1,000. Bro, one day I sat out there with Red Pill. I sat out there with Red Pill with Sinetta, Red Pill, myself. And we literally, I was out there for 8 hours. Thousands walking by. Conscious Moors had not present like that. But Sinetta had been out there for years.
Yeah, the thing about it, Sarnetta's channel, Red Pill's channel.
No, I'm not talking. No, you're missing my point, brother. You missed it, brother. Please, that's not the brother. I'm not talking about what he's talking about. You don't. Once you went there, you missed it. I'm not talking about.
I'm not mentioning it.
I'm not talking about this. But I'm talking about the present.
Okay, I hear what you're saying.
Talking about a mere.
I hear what you're saying.
That's all I'm saying. Not talking about any topic you talk about. Just a mere presence.
Understood. What I'm saying.
That's all I'm saying. I don't want my point to get lost. That's all. I didn't want my point to get lost. What he talked about. I don't want. That's not what.
Yeah. What I'm concerned with. I hear what you're saying, and I agree. The presence.
Talking about
the presence of the Moors is the presence of the Moors is maybe lacking in the ways that other schools of thought is, and a large portion of why that is because Moors come out with the anti-black is. I'm not saying it is from my end, but the way it's perceived is, oh, those people ain't black people. So it turned that all I'm saying is a lot of people who identify as black, African American, Negro, color, whether we want to say whether we acknowledge it's a fiction or not, those who identify as that are turned off with the Moorish ideology, the Moorish paradigm, when we get to talking about black, which is why you haven't seen its prevalence or its presence accepted as much as the brothers who's talking about the Hebrew Israelite or the Kemites or the this or the that. You see, so that's one factor. When we talk about that strategic outreach, the way that is communicated, it completely turns the unconscious Moors off, so that there's no chance of it ever being as popular among the community in that way, which is why. And I've been places. Hold on, I've been places. I've been in thousands. I've met thousands of Moors too. And what I've come to accept is that not everybody, as it stands, is going to identify as such. But there's enough Moors, there's enough nationally, there's enough of us to put something together that does something in the interest of us all, that can create the space to then accept and bring in the unconscious Moors, the same way, again, that Israel did. It didn't take all of the Israelis to come
United
together.
States helped them. United States and Great Britain helped them. I got it for the audience. For the audience, United States, brother. I got it for United States and Great Britain helped them. We have to see that. We must.
The reason
because I don't want people to repeat, brother. 29 years, brother. I'm telling you what they're going to say.
I know what
they're going to repeat what you said. Right. And I'm saying we got to add the element that United States and Great Britain helped them. That's all I want to make the point for the audience.
Right. And the reality is the United States and Great Britain is not trying to help the Moors form a nation.
So I was just talking about your example about Israel. I'm talking about the example about Israel, but for the audience, just for the audience, so they're not, because they're going to repeat what you said. So I'm going to be so that United States and Great Britain helped them. That's all I'm saying.
I'll take it a step further. I'll say that those two parties was behind setting it up. They was behind setting it up so that they can have a presence in that region.
I'm gonna drop the mic
so that they can control.
I'm gonna drop the mic.
I'm not talking about it in the context like, yo, these people pulled themselves up from the bootstrap. The U.S. and Britain was behind setting it up.
That's how it was coming across.
They the ones behind setting the UN up. So when you want to go to the UN,
that's how it was came across.
Ding, ding, ding.
Brother, I'm aware.
All right. I'm just talking from a conscious perspective of those of us who's in the know. I understand not everybody in the audience may be aware, so we can kind of.
We have to articulate that. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
But yeah, the U.S. was behind setting it up, setting up Israel. They was behind setting up the United Nations. They the ones that created these institutions, and they funded them.
Elements of colonialism and international. I'm clear on that.
So all I'm saying is, when we look at when we talk about setting up a government, we want the Native American. When we look at what was out there, we want a mix of between what the Native Americans got, the American.
I don't. No, not we. No, you. No, not me. Not me. No, not me. Not me. I'm listening for the audience. Not me.
Okay. Well,
I don't want that.
Let me clarify.
Yeah, I don't want that. I'm just, brother. I'm very clear. I don't want that.
Brother Abdullah.
Yeah, say that. Please say that. Say please.
What Brother Manson is saying. What Brother Manson is saying. What Brother Manson is saying is the deal the American Indians got is they get broke off with some money. They get a land allotment.
I don't want that.
Okay, hold on. That's cool. Let me tell them what I want. This is a discussion.
Yeah,
you have your demands and I have mine that I think is good demands, right? So what I think is good demands is when I look at reparations and the groups that have gotten certain levels of reparations, I'm looking at the American Indians as a point of observation. I'm looking at what Israel got. I'm looking at what the Italians got. I'm looking at what the Japanese got. I'm looking at what everybody got. And I'm saying, well, we need this off of this list, and we need X, Y, and Z off of this list. They gave Liberia, they recognized their sovereignty. Britain and the U.S. was behind setting that up too. So what I'm saying is we need recognition of sovereignty. We need to have the ability to create our own communities unmolested and uninterrupted. Like at the turn of the century, we had thousands of communities popping up. They were unconscious, but we had our own communities. We had our own communities, our own banks. They burned all of them down. Check out the Red Summer of 1919. They burned them all down, right? So we want. What I'm saying is, what I would say, what we want for our people is a mix of those things. They give Israel billions of dollars every year to help fund their progress. That help you was talking about, because part of the reparations isn't just getting a check individually and that's just it, and they just give us recognize some type of sovereignty. No, they have to keep paying compensation for all of the years that they were for the abuse. So there's a hefty fine, there's a hefty fee with that. So what the Native American, what the American Indians got, They get money every year. They have a certain level of autonomy on their land, in their dealings. I'm not saying we want domestic sovereignty. I'm not saying we want the same style exact of everything that the American Indians or any of these groups got. I'm saying specifically when we look at what all these other groups got, we can take portions of what every group got and put it to our plan of what we want as demands, because that's a part of the reparation process. That's a part of regaining the sovereignty. That's a part of getting the identity back, is to take all of the things we already have examples that they did for all these other groups and put that all in one package and say that's what you owe us, because they owe us that and then some and more. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm not saying we want Native American or American Indian recognition. I'm not saying I want to be recognized as American Indian. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the things
neither was I.
Yeah. I'm saying the things that they were getting, some of the little repairing
I don't want none of that. I don't want any of that.
So you may not want it, but I think these things that they gave all these other groups reparations for, our people should want all of those benefits.
I hope not.
Why wouldn't we want? Why wouldn't
you have? All right, let me explain.
Yeah, please explain that.
In James Crawford's book called The Creation of State. You got James Crawford book, To Creation of State. You also have the Act of Algiers. The Act of Algiers of 1906 and the Act of Protect Morocco 1880. The Act of Algiers of 1806 dealing with those states that signed the Act of Algiers in 1906, dealing with helping with our banking, our military, all right? What Abdullah wants for his people, all right?
That's the same thing I'm talking about. That's the same thing I'm saying.
No, is decolonization, the repeal of Inter Terra Divina, which is the Pope Alexander's decree of March 4th, 1493, the repeal of Inter Terra Divina, decolonization. Also,
I'm just saying. The Pope said that that's all invalid now. You know that. Hold on.
Let me. All right.
I'm just saying the Pope
said
they repealed it.
All right. This is what the repeal of the treaty between France and Great Britain, 1763, where France ceded large portions of our land. The repeal of these royal charters, the repeal of these land cession treaties between Spain and United States, between Spain and France, between Great Britain and France, the repeal of those treaties, the decolonization of our land, restoring Moors, the restoration of Moors to statehood, reentering the international community as an old and original state under the Reversion of Sovereignty, to reestablish diplomacy with the treaty nations. All right, we're dealing with also the military, about 1 million of us. A million of us being trained in military, all right, where we can defend ourselves. This is what Abdullah Bey wants for his people.
All right, so let me add on to that. Those are all great demands, and I don't have a problem with any of those things. But I also think that they used to pay tribute, and when you pay tribute, you're supposed to get paid. There's a large transfer of wealth that took place during the colonization period, and there's a lot of money that banks made money off of, these colonies that turned into states made money off, all these different things. So we can't remove the money that's owed along with that. And then as far as the training in the military, that sounds similar to what I was saying as far as the Israel package, because that's what they did for Israel. They trained their military. You see what I'm saying? They still train, so much so to American military.
Decolonization.
Yeah.
Decolonization.
Yeah. So yeah,
because the resources on the land. The resources, the land. If we have control of the land, again, I mean, what I'm saying is, I don't want any payments from them
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
that's you. I mean, my
no,
thing
yeah,
is,
that's right. You say that, bro. That's what I'm saying. I said
what I'm saying,
I don't
indeed,
want
indeed.
any. Don't let me out. I don't want any payment. Give me an example. Hear me out. Terrence.
I hear what you're saying.
I take Terrence's. I take over Terrence's house for 10 years. This is for the audience too. I take over Terrence's house for 10 years. He's in the house with his wife and so forth. Then I give Terrence 100,000, but I'm still in the house. I'm still in his house.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm against that. I'm saying
no. So I'm saying that's what I'm saying is.
But
Terrence,
you took over Terrence's house, right? And then you ran a business outside of Terrence's house for 10 years and made absorbent amounts of profit in gold. We can take the payment in gold and return everything you owe back, but you used.
But I'm still in his house, though.
Yeah, but not only did you take his house,
but I'm still in his house.
I'm not saying
I'm giving him so I gave him $1 million. But I'm
no. I ain't saying give him $1 million. I'm saying give him the house back and the money you made off of his house.
I'm saying and leave the land.
Yeah, fine.
Leave the land.
But you gotta pay.
But leave the land though.
Fine.
Leave the land. No, leave the land.
I'm with you. But you owe that money. You can't
leave the land. If there's no discussion of they're leaving the land.
Yeah, but when you leave the land, when the children of Israel supposedly left Egypt, they left
the land. That's what I'm saying. When
they left.
I can't leave that out, bro. Decolonization.
I'm with you, but I'm saying also pay that money. Pay the money that you owe.
If I got the land, brother,
the land is the resource.
If I got the land, brother,
here's the thing. Give me. Anybody that knows anything about agriculture, let me finish. Anybody that knows anything about agriculture is that if you're planting food, you can't grow food in that same area the next season. You have to use a different part of the land to grow that crop. You can't use the same portion of the land that you grew and you harvested it from. So I'm not against anything about leaving the land.
The factories are here already. The vineyards are here. The wine vineyards are here. The wine thing, they're already here. I mean, I'm just saying.
So
I'm saying the oil's here. I'm not saying they're here already.
Here's the thing: is you're saying that you want them to train them. You want them to train us in military. You're basically saying that you want them to to leave the land, but to train us how to fight.
No, I'm saying we can get others to train.
You want them to train us how to fight, but
brother,
you don't want them to pay
other people to train us, brother. We can get other people to train us, bro. We can get other people to train us, bro.
Yeah, we have plenty of people that have done.
I'm saying, though, bro. No, point I'm making is, I don't want the Israel package. I don't want the Native American package. Because they're not talking about decolonization. I'm talking about decolonization. I'm talking about returning control of our land to us.
I think the difference.
The factories are already here. The fact of the oils are here. They're already here. They're here already.
And we don't know. And we don't have no ability as a people to extract and do none of that. With Elijah Muhammad,
none of us don't.
No. If
this engineers,
we have spending $2 trillion a year. We don't own our own social media. We don't own our own processing facilities.
Those are those among us, though. They don't need, brother.
Now you're saying the same. Hold on, but now you're saying the same thing that I was saying is that we don't need all of the people to be awake to make the moves. You're saying the same thing.
I didn't say that.
So all I'm saying is, I'm down with. Hold on. Just
brother,
hold on. For your audience of what I actually was saying.
No, brother. You said something I never said though. So you got to give me. All right, you said that I said that we need all the people. I never said that. I didn't say you said that. I said you sound like me because I said we don't need all the people. But I never. All right, but it implies. Oh, hold on. When you say that. You sound like me that we don't need all the people.
Yeah, because you said we need to educate it. But you did though.
It implies that I said it implies
what you inferred. Well, what I inferred.
I inferred
Okay, let me say that.
We need all the people. I never inferred. I never inferred we need all the people.
Well, when
I just want to make my point clear. I never inferred
so
that.
could you clarify for me when I said specifically that we have enough among us to do what we need to do, and you said I disagree because educational outreach is needed. So that inferred to me that you're saying we need to educate everybody to do what we need to do.
I didn't say that. I said we need community outreach. We don't have brother. We have a social media presence. Yes.
I'm not talking about that. I'm saying
I know. I'm talking about what I was. I'm talking about what I was saying.
Yeah.
You got to, all right, brother. You got to, all right. You got to give me the opportunity to clarify what I said.
I go both ways, my brother. Go ahead, dude. I go both ways. Go ahead. I'm listening.
All right, go ahead, brother. All right, go ahead.
No, all I'm saying, my brother, is you. If I remember correctly, you stated that there needs to be community outreach.
Because you making claims that I said something though. I'm not. That's saying you're making claims.
Well, I said that you sound like me. I didn't say you said anything. You said it implied. I said you sound like me when you said we don't need everybody to do what to do.
Yeah, but I never said that.
You never said what?
I said that we need a larger outreach. This is what I said. A larger outreach in the community. We need community present.
You said that in relation. You said that after I said we have enough people amongst us to do what we need to do.
And I said that we don't.
Hold on.
And I said we don't. And I explained why I said that. And I gave examples.
So okay, now we're getting somewhere. So now you're saying that we don't need everybody because we have enough engineers and enough people.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I said that we have engineers among us. That's what I said.
I thought I heard you.
I didn't say we don't need everybody. I didn't say that. This is what I said. I said we have engineers among us. That's what I said.
Yeah. I mean,
that's what I said. I
mean, the people could play it back and hear what it is. It's just I don't want to get too muddled. Yeah, I don't want to get too muddled up in that. The point I'm making is,
let's move on.
I want decolonization. I'm all for giving the land back and all of those types of things. And I also think that there should be financial compensation. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that when we look at the reparations that other groups have gotten, including the decolonization that we want, there's some things that they did for other groups that I think they should give to us. That's only what I'm saying. I'm all for giving the land back. I'm all for everything that's involved with complete sovereignty and liberation of our people.
We go. All right. So it's our last closing words. We have, we have two. 1 minute. 1 minute actually.
I'll just say, honest for having me on. You know what I'm saying? Honest for having me on. It was a very good spirited discussion. I hope to have more of these, and I think this is good for our people. And it's we should be passionate about these subjects for sure.
Absolutely. Alamir.
Indeed. We gotta have a lot more discussion on these topics if we ever want to see them coming to fruition. We want to see a Moorish state formed. We're gonna have to continue to discuss it and bring it to the right people. Like you said, outreach, it is what it is, but I do want to say that as far as the similarity to the American Indian type reparation with the reservation and things of that nature, you need land as a formal criteria to form a state.
We own our land right now. We got that.
But you don't have the sovereignty.
We don't have control of it. I got that. But you said we don't have control of our land. No, I'm saying no on it. For the audience,
the sovereignty.
For the audience, we do have land. We don't have control of our land.
The control is the sovereignty.
I know that. We don't, but we have land.
With that, I'm gonna digress.
We have land. We're gonna move on. All right, y'all. Thank y'all for joining us. Right. I appreciate that. Indeed. All right.
All right, my brother. Y'all have a
salam. All right, thank y'all for joining us. Thank you. This was a very energetic discussion. I loved every moment of it. All right, because this is needed to create thought. all right, to stimulate thought. We have, some opposing views. It's just always good because it stimulates thought. All right. Definitely not against opposing views. All right. So once again, the law and history government classes the recorded classes can be found on Moroccan Post Media YouTube page. Moroccan Post Media YouTube page. All right.
And one other thing I'd like to say, for the viewers, if this is your first time visiting Crumb TV, or is this your first time visiting Moroccan Post Media YouTube pages, please like, comment, and subscribe. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And boom.
All right,
Go ahead.
All right, the Moroccan Post Law Government History class presents. All right, next topic this coming Wednesday: Moorish Treaty Protection and Consular Relations, Writ of Corwanto Part 1. That's this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time via Zoom. All right, my books. mooresandmasonry.org to order my books. Moors and Masonry, Part 1, The Illuminati and Illumination of the Mind, The Masonic Compass Square and how her Venus, and Masonic Compass Square and the connection of measurement and timekeeping, how her Venus and Moon rule, etymology and vocabulary, supplement you want, and to pre-order Moors and Masonry Part 2, go to mooresandmasonry.org.
All right, mooresandmasonry.org.
All right.
Thank you.
So thank you again. All right, so we'll see y'all this Wednesday. This Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, this is our Zoom class. All right, so we'll see you this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you again for tuning in.